they had it decked out. It was like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you know.
You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, welcome everyone. This is episode 52. We are Saints in the South, representing saints everywhere, and we are your source for gospel growth and good times. We want to wish everyone a happy new year. It is, and hey, good luck with them resolutions.
2021.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah, hopefully by now you haven't already failed on your New Year's resolutions.
I think I have.
And it's not even 2021 yet as we're recording this.
That's right. Exactly. We're still recording.
I've already failed mine too.
Hey, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button and take the opportunity to leave some reviews there. We've shared reviews in the past that y'all have left, so we'll keep doing that as you leave reviews. So we appreciate that very much. We have a couple of exciting things going on. A lot of you may have seen the new feature that we've added, the Uncle Andrew, the story time with Uncle Andrew. It's that's
Uncle Andrew's box of socks.
That's right. Exactly.
I got plenty of socks to put on.
And if you don't know, you gotta listen to the podcast. It's an inside joke.
That's right. Exactly. Everything derives from somewhere. Yeah. Hey, so check out his like I say, the first one aired last week. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But you'll feel like you're sitting in Uncle Andrew's living room listening to him share a story. Though he's a really good storyteller. So check it out.
Yes.
Hey, also we have got a brand new website, and you can find it at saintsinthesouth.com. So that's pretty exciting there. We've there you'll be able to access all of our podcast shows, links to all of our social media outlets such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There's also an option where you can contact us through email as well as a voicemail. That's right. You can click on a little blue microphone and leave us a voicemail. You can use it to give us suggestions, leave us reviews, or whatever it is you'd like to say. We'll check it out. And hey, you never know, we actually might share that on the podcast, on the show. Hey, you can also
make you famous.
What's that?
I say we'll make you famous.
That's right. We'll make you famous. That's right. We're still working on that ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey, we're asking you to sign up. So there's a place where you can sign up. It's free. There is no fee when it comes to the subscription, but you'll be able to stay up to date with everything going on in the Saints in the South world. But there is a link where you can be a Patreon subscriber as well, or a Patreon contributor, and continue to help us grow this adventure that we're on. So please check out the website. There's it's live, but it will be evolving. So a lot of good things to come there. So actually, our first blog is out as well. So check it out. We hope to have many of those coming out on a regular basis with different contributors and everything. So a lot of good things going on, fellas. What y'all think about that?
Exciting, man. Things going on. Things happening. 2021.
Yeah. It's a whole new world to dive in.
That's right.
That's what I'm hoping for. 2021. Come on, man. Please be a good year.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's kind of what that blog post talks about. You know, say, hey, bring on 2021, and let's put 2020 in the memory bank.
That's right. Or forget about it.
Or just forget about it. Some people may want to just forget about it. That's true.
Just forget this whole year ever happened.
Well, hey, this week we are covering Joseph Smith history. It's only one chapter, but it's a lengthy chapter. So we're only covering verses 1 through 26, and the title of it is "I Saw a Pillar of Light." And so we're going to turn it over to Uncle Andrew at this time to give us some historical setting here.
So let's backtrack 5 years. 1820 is the first vision. So let's backtrack 5 years to the volcano Tambora it erupts there on the Indonesian islands, and it was a big eruption that actually affected the whole world. So let's go to the United States and Vermont, where Joseph's family was living. It affected them so much that 1816 was a year without a summer. So there was no farming, no way to grow crops. So Joseph Smith Sr., Joseph's dad, as patriarch of the home and the breadwinner, trying to make some money for the family, he was looking for work. So he actually migrated west to New York, to Western New York, which is now Palmyra, and Palmyra then also. But so he went, found some land to crop on, and then rest of his family came, and again, that was just a few years before 1820. And anyway, during this time, in history, it's called the Second Great Awakening. About 800,000 people. It didn't just affect Joseph Smith Sr. It affected all these people in the New England area. They went out west to New York to work and find land to farm. And anyways, a lot of people started moving in that direction. And again, it was the Second Great Awakening, where people were looking for religious. It was a religious movement. A lot of people were talking about God and things in that matter. And so anyways, just an interesting time. And for that reason, Joseph Smith himself was questioning what church to join and what sect or what religion that he wanted to belong himself into. So a fun and interesting time. So,
oh yeah, there's a lot of competing, competing ideas during that time. So it was I'm sure he wasn't alone. That was a phenomenon that affected the whole country. There was kind of a great revival in a way. There was a great interest in religion. A lot of people turning back to God, and a lot of people trying to figure out, what they should do. What church should they attend? And
so they claimed there was
no different.
They claimed there was about 800,000 people that actually migrated from New England area to when I say the West, just a state over, New York. And again, the Erie Canal was being built, so that was a lot of traffic.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of new and interesting movement happening. And again, you can look up the Second Great Awakening. I think it's between 1790 to 1820.
Oh yeah.
You also got to think about, so this is America is still brand new. Right?
Yeah.
It's just from 1820 to 1776, that's 44 years. So the country's brand new, really. And you go back and thinking about one of the reasons that America and the purposes of America to be established was to be a free land, right? So this great religious movement, this great awakening could take place, so that people could exercise religion how they saw fit, so how they could exercise the beliefs how they saw fit. They had gotten away from England, and if my history is correct, England and that side of the world, you weren't really allowed to exercise beliefs the way you wanted to. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, there was more of a state-run church. That was kind of right. Yeah, you had to belong to the right church because that was the government kind of dictated it.
Right. Yeah. So this really opens up the opportunity for the restoration to take place. Something else on how Joseph kind of got to this point as well. I think of the prophecy, the scripture in Amos chapter 8, verses 11 through 12. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." So, there was a famine of hearing the word of the Lord, or the fullness of the gospel, as we'll come to say, and so forth. So, and people were seeking. Joseph Smith wasn't the only one seeking for truth. during that time.
Unusual excitement as we're getting ready to find out here in Joseph Smith History 1. That's what he said, unusual excitement. So
yeah.
And a lot of traveling preachers at that time, a lot of people traveling around and having these tent meetings and, little tent revivals all over the country and things like that. And there's a lot of different preaching styles actually were kind of developing at that time. There's a interesting story. I just popped in my mind. Just it was kind of associated with it this time where I had attended a church years ago, and there was the preacher. I don't know if y'all have ever been to a church where there's I don't know if I can't mimic it, but the preaching style is very, and I say to ya, the really like breathy, really just like exaggerated. And I never experienced that before. And I was like, wow, like, is he for real? Like, man, this guy sounds like he's having a heart attack. Like I know, it was, I don't mean to make fun of it, but I'd never heard that before. And it was kind of like, wow, this is crazy. And a friend of mine that I was there with was actually, he was studying to become an ordained minister in his church. And he was like, yeah, that's actually a preaching style that developed especially it was prominent in the Old West during this time when these, traveling preachers were coming around and having these tent revivals, because when they would go out to a lot of these mining camps and stuff out West, these preachers inevitably people would show up to heckle them while they're preaching. And so the preacher would have to go out at some point, he would have to just take care of it. So, these preachers, they'd set up and they'd start preaching, and then, somebody, they'd have 2 or 3 guys heckling them, and they'd take them outside and they'd fight them. And so oh, wow. So the preacher would carry 2 or 3 guys out there and just, whoop them and then come back in. He comes back. He had literally just gotten a fight, sometimes fighting 2 guys.
Right. Yeah.
So he comes in, he's all hyped up and breathing and winded. And so he told me that's where this preaching style came from. I was like, are you serious? Like, man, that's crazy.
I see. I told you, I said, everything derives from something. Right. I mean, seriously.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we had this. I don't know. I've always in my head had this idea too that these traveling preachers being these like little quiet, mousy guys with glasses. Like, no, brethren, it's like, no, these guys were tough. People were serious about religion.
Yeah, and especially that's right. And you also think about especially back then. I mean, they didn't have microphones, right? They didn't have things to really project their voices. Set up big speakers in the back so everybody could hear, so they had to really project their voices so that more people could hear as well.
And be entertaining. I mean,
yeah,
try to capture it all, as people were walking and so
absolutely. So let Kenny, I'm gonna put you on the spot here just for a second. So I was baptized when I was 12 and mostly raised in the church, right? And I've looked a little bit into other religions and so forth, but not to the extent. Andrew, same thing, raised in the church. Kenny, you were raised in the church as well, but as you've said before on the show, there was a time where you were away. So what kind of putting yourself in Joseph's shoes as he sought for different truths and things like that. Have you done a whole lot of seeking and searching and so forth, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's kind of what inspired me to seek like I did. There was a point in my life where I had fallen away from the church and church in general. I was just I was living in the world, and a series of events had happened in my life that got me thinking in a different direction and kind of given me a wake up call. And so I began taking the topic of religion and my faith seriously. And so during that time, I had been attending and started attending another church with some guys that I was working with. And so I had done that for a little while and honestly attended several different churches in the area. And was kind of wondering, which one I needed to join. And I did remember the story of Joseph Smith, and I kind of felt like, well, I mean, I should know. And so I did spend a lot of time studying. I'd studied different religions, even, and different Christian denominations' beliefs, and kind of compared and contrasted them. And I eventually did. I never, of course, I never had the vision. Very few of us do ever have any kind of anything as dramatic as Joseph Smith had.
Right.
However, I did fast and pray for 3 days over this. I was pretty serious, and I was never good at fasting. I mean, obviously I like to eat, but I was pretty upset, and I felt like I needed to know, and so I did fast and pray about it. And the only impression that I felt like I had was to go, to the church, and the missionaries had popped up. There's a lot of things. I'm
Right.
trying to put all the pieces together here that I could probably talk for an hour about this, but the missionaries had popped by my house, during this time, and so I was talking to them and asking them questions and some things, and so I ended up getting, my boys were still little, and went to church, and we went one Sunday, and I sent them down to primary, and I was nervous because the church that we had been attending at the time had a children's church that was really exciting. I mean, they had it decked out. It was like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and this was all
roller coaster.
Oh man, it was like there was music and all kind of stuff going on, and I was like, man, and in my head, I'm thinking, man, I remember Mormon church when I was a kid, man. It was not exciting. It wasn't exciting. My kids are going to hate it because they're used to all this other exciting stuff going on, and they're going to be sitting in a little classroom, expected to be quiet and reverent. I was like, oh man, I just knew it wasn't going to go well. But I met back up with them. There was still 3 hours, and at the end of the third hour, somebody brought them to me, and I asked them, what they thought, and they were like, it was pretty cool. I'm like, really? Man, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was like, wow. I expected them to be like, oh my gosh, that was so boring. Why did you take us to this church? And they were like, no, it was pretty cool. And I said, well, do y'all want to come back? And they were like, yeah, sure. I'm like, wow. Okay. Then
the rest is history. That's right.
I came back the next Sunday, and the Sunday after that, and the Sunday after that.
and here you are now, a co-host on an LDS podcast show.
Wow. I would have never guessed.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But God does answer prayers. I guess that's the gist of it. We might not get the big dramatic answer. We're not going to get neon lights out of heaven, but if we are serious, if we do want to know the truth, just like Book of James counsels us, if we seek wisdom, we ask God, He'll give it to us.
Right.
But sometimes it's not in our time, and it's not in the way that we might want. But I feel like the Lord does answer prayers, and He will listen and hear our prayers. And if we're receptive, we'll get the answers that we want.
Absolutely. There was one other thing that I wanted to kind of bring up as we look at these verses and everything, but how we come about of having Joseph Smith history, right? Joseph, he wrote this in 1838. And the very first verse basically answers that, and I won't read it here, but he's basically talking about how there's so much false information out there about this new religion, about this new church and its growth and its spread and the success that it's having. False information about him as well, and stories going on about him, and so he, it's probably partly inspired, as well as partly like, listen, I'm going to set the record straight. Okay. And I'm going to put the truth out there. And I know for me, there's been times where, where something was going around, about me, or something that was incorrectly stated about me. And I want to try and correct it as quick as possible, and you can just imagine, this is the year 1838. And so now Joseph has been dealing with this kind of stuff for years now. And so he wants to get something out that's official, put a history down, and say, look, this is what has transpired. And this is the history behind it. And, you can take it for what it is, but it's the truth, and it's my experience. So
just one of the most slandered people in history. There's more lies about Joseph Smith than maybe anybody else I've ever even read about. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, sorry, Andrew. I didn't interrupt you.
No, that's fine. So yeah, in 1838, he was in Nauvoo, well established. He's already went through the Liberty Jail trial, and Liberty Jail, being persecuted, and finally Nauvoo was building up, and he was definitely, the church was growing, and they really started getting serious about writing the history, how important, because there was actually 4 accounts. In 1838 is what we know of, and in the Pearl of Great Price, but it wasn't until I think 1960, 1950s, 60s, that these other accounts actually came out. I mean, the church had them, but they actually just came out of the vault, and people started
finding out about it and stuff.
Yeah, find out about these other ones. I think 1832 he wrote one, but I want to say when he wrote it, just his lack of ability to. He was still young, and again, every time he had a scribe write it down, it was a different audience.
Right.
So the vision was the same, but some of the details were different. I say different, just again, each time. How many times have I told a story? You could probably go back to our other podcasts of Joseph Smith, the first vision, and the story. The end of the story is the same, but some of our details will be different. And I am interested to go watch it. I ain't even watched it, but to watch it. What was it? Our number 7?
So so if you're new to the show, it's actually our very first YouTube podcast, but it's our 7th show. So it was the first video produced podcast that we have. So, and it's on the first vision and everything. So that was back as leading into General Conference, where Russell M. Nelson had asked us to study the first vision and everything. So we hosted a show on that. So yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, check it out. And again, like I said, there's so many accounts, but like Jackson was saying, what Joe Smith papers, and there was incorrect information. Joe Smith's like, hey, we got to get all this cleared up, So in 1838, they were in Nauvoo, and everything was getting established really good. The town was building up. So, and that's what we have now to study from. And talking about President Nelson, he said, if Joseph Smith transcendent experience in the sacred grove teaches us anything, it is that heavens are open and that God speaks to his children. So I had that written down, and was reminded of that when you said President Nelson. So
that's right.
Good stuff.
Going off of that, Andrew, I think of, so when you think about people socially, some people come right out and are very I guess proactive when it comes to interacting with people, right? No problem going up, shaking your hand, talking to people, kind of being the life of the party, so to speak. And just, then you have those other people who a lot of times sit back in the corner of the room and just kind of, tending themselves and so forth, and not really going to say much. So, and I know I'm really bringing this down to a worldly level here, but when you think about communication between our Heavenly Father and us, our Heavenly Father, he's the individual sitting back in the corner of the room waiting for you to come speak to him. And he will talk with you all day long. But we need to address him. We need to kneel down in prayer and address him. There will be times where he will communicate with us, but if we're not communicating, if we're not initiating that communication very much, then most likely we're not going to recognize any time when he's kind of raising his hand over there in the corner saying, hey, I'd like to speak to you and everything. And so that's what Joseph decided to do.
So as you were saying that, it reminds me, as I was studying about this a while back, who was the hero that day? That day, the first vision, I automatically just think of Joseph Smith, and obviously, definitely was he a great instrument in the restoration. But you got to, I've always looked at it from the ground up, but you got to think what a special and great day for our Heavenly Father to be looking down with his only begotten Son. And this is the beginning of the restoration. And God, I mean, how great, he's the hero, he always will be the hero, and Joseph Smith was an instrument in the restoration, as we all right now are instruments in doing the work of the Lord. So, again, I've always thought about the ground looking up, but think how special that day was, looking down and looking at his servant, right. Joseph Smith, beginning the restoration. Finally, someone's asking, not finally asking, there was many people asking before, but just what a great day. And beginning the restoration. So
that I've never really thought about it that way, but it's got to be exciting, but kind of frustrating at the same time, because all the Lord has to work with is imperfect people, and even the best of us are far from perfect. That's it's kind of like, just like with Moses, you always think back to Moses, because it's a similar experience. It's where the Lord got to come down, had somebody that he had prepared that was receptive and ready to take on that role, and he got to come down and speak to someone who he had called as a prophet. But just like Joseph Smith, Moses had a lot of problems of his own, and throughout history, like most of the prophets, through Old Testament times up to modern day, were far from perfect. You could find fault with pretty much any of them, but they're obedient, and that's the thing. They obedient to the Lord and heeded his call.
That's cool. And that's actually a perfect transition into a challenge I have. So y'all don't.
Another one of Jackson's challenges.
Yeah, that's right. Listen, hey,
nervous. This isn't a trivia contest.
No, it's no.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
No, so I'm hoping I don't get struck down right now, but I'm going to challenge the church a little bit, and y'all hold on. Don't go running yet. I'm going to challenge the church, calling this vision the first vision, when in reality it really wasn't the first vision, right? Yes, I understand that it's the first vision of this dispensation, but just as you said, Kenny, it's not the first time God has spoken with man. Right. Yeah. You have Moses, you have many prophets, you have the brother of Jared.
Goes back to Adam,
all the way back to Adam. That's right.
Yeah.
And so that to me is a greater testimony to me that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And he will always speak to man, and he will, and when it is necessary, he will reveal himself to man. The Lord will reveal himself to man. You have Stephen in Acts, where he saw the Lord standing on the right hand of God. Many instances and everything. So it's not really the first vision, right, as we like to call it. So just a slight little challenge there to the title of it. So
I tell you what, it is one of the most documented visions of God that we have in our time. So we have the Old Testament, New Testament, and I have noticed as I've been studying the Joseph Smith's first vision, you got your 4 accounts, and then you got these 9 second-hand accounts and different. Anyway, so it is a very well documented vision. So that's why it's so easy to pick apart too, when you got so many resources.
Right.
You got so many people just wanting to chop at it, But
speaking of Joseph, of asking, and going there, where he read in James, chapter 1, verse 5, right? He had to ask a question in order to obtain an answer. And so that's an eternal principle. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to wonder, right? It's okay to be curious and to seek and to look for answers. That's how you get answers, by asking questions. So, and I say that by sharing a little story that happened over just last week over the Christmas holidays. My son Brody, he's got so much of me in him. It's ridiculous. It really is. It's kind of crazy to watch, but personalities and everything. But he was wanting to ask someone about something that he was interested in, but he was scared to ask. It was an adult that that he was going to be asking. And so I told him, I pulled him aside. I said, look, I said, listen, you've got too much of me in you. Okay. That's one of the greatest fears that I've had in my life as well, is asking questions about whatever it is. Okay. Whether it's something I'm interested in or curious about. I said, don't be afraid to ask questions. I said, that's how you get answers. So go ahead and overcome that fear right now. Go ask him and talk with him about what it is you want to talk with him about. So don't let that hold you back. So anyway, ask questions out there. It's part of life, and it helps us gain answers. Right. So we'll take a look at any of these verses that jumped out to y'all.
Verse 5 talks about unusual excitement. So I like that phrase, and unusual excitement. He puts that in there in verse 5 on the subject of religion. So
yeah, well, so with that unusual, yeah, that's right. So with that unusual excitement in verse 8 says, he says, but so great were the confusion and strife among the different denominations that it was impossible for a person young as I was and so unacquainted with men and things to come to any certain conclusion who was right and who was wrong. Again, he's 14 years old during this time, and again, just not able to come to a determination. He had said that he had felt somewhat partial to the Methodist sect, but his family was also divided as well. They were all kind of going their own way and choosing their own path as far as which church they were going to. So it wasn't like they were all showing up every Sunday to church together, you know, as a family. Yeah.
So we do know there was a family Bible, you know, there in the house. There in verse 11 talks about the famous scripture that you always hear about, James 1:5. If any of you lack wisdom, ask of God. And actually, Oliver Cowdery and I believe William Smith actually said there's a really good chance because of all these traveling preachers, Methodist preachers, that Joseph just heard this. He heard this from them. You know, he heard this from actually Oliver Cowdery and William Smith actually said, I think it was Reverend George. Let me see, George. I want to get it right. Reverend George Lane, I think. Yeah, Reverend George Lane. According to Oliver Cowdery, we don't, this is coming from him, but that he probably preached that at one of his sermons, and it kind of like sparked an interest in Joseph Smith's mind. And there in verse 11, it talks about how he was reading that there at his house, I guess, or somewhere in the area of where he was living. But we do know those big old family Bibles. When I went to Palmyra, they showed a Bible that they probably had, and it's one of those big, have you ever seen those big family Bibles?
Oh yeah.
So anyway,
record births and deaths and
exactly
marriages and whatnot in it. Yeah.
It was one of those. And so again, I always envision Joseph Smith just got a Bible, and he just put his hand somewhere, and it said, if any of you lack wisdom, ask of God. But again, it was these preachers going around, that probably triggered his, who gave him that interest, to search.
Oh, I would imagine it was no accident too,
That's right. That's right.
Somebody probably was inspired of God to give that message at that particular time when Joseph Smith was listening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There in 12, it says, never did any passage of scripture come with more power to the heart of man than this did at this time to him, so.
It just iterates the effort, again, that we have to put in to find those answers that we have. I like something in studying the additional resources, something that I never really realized this place. I'd always just pictured him just taking off into the woods and finding a place and being like, this would be a good place.
Yeah.
But that's actually not the case at all. It's actually a place that he had been working in, cutting down trees and so forth. Matter of fact, the latest video from the church on the first vision shows an axe that's in a stump, and in the historical records, it mentions that there was an axe that he had left there. And when he came back, that was the place that he had selected to kneel down and pray. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. He retired to the woods and where he was working, and I thought about that too. How often, sometimes and every job is different. Every job I've ever had is different, but sometimes going to your workplace, and then if you're working by yourself, is kind of a time, if you get a break, obviously when you get done with your work, if you got a few minutes of a break, it's kind of a time to meditate and just ponder without the busyness of things going on at your house.
Right.
Because you got to think, in his house, there was 10 or 11 people living, and this is a little log cabin. So there wasn't really much quiet time. You know what I mean? So he definitely,
You didn't have a family room, a great room, a game room, a dining room.
Your
own bedroom.
No, he didn't have his own bedroom.
None of that.
Yeah, his own. So when he actually went out there to work, it was probably just a good, like I said, he retired to the woods. That was kind of a quiet time for him. So, anyways.
Well, that's, we call it the Sacred Grove now. And, Marcus isn't with us today, obviously, but that was one of the things that he had mentioned, that Joseph, that he went and he didn't go seeking for a sacred grove, right? But it became the Sacred Grove based on the experience that he had. And so we can also find our own sacred grove, quote unquote, sacred grove places where we go and have that personal one-on-one time to commune with God and to commune with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for sure. So
yeah,
that's right.
Totally agree.
Yeah. It's kind of cool that that was the place that he was working. Just because that's how our lives are. There's very seldom or are we going to be presented with some magnificent place. We can go, oh, this is where I should come to pray. It's like there's just normal life. You have to find those places. Our sacred grove could be in our vehicle.
Yeah.
It could be anywhere. It could, it could be in our closet. It could be, somewhere. If you're working out in the woods cutting down trees, it might be somewhere out in the woods where you've been cutting down trees.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Mowing grass. I've
there you go. Yeah, your sacred grove could be on your lawnmower, right?
Yeah, cut down the woods.
So I also thought about this. Andrew has talked about this. So Andrew, you've actually been up there.
Yes.
Right. And you were there around the April time, weren't you?
Yeah. So first week in April. And we'll go ahead.
No. I was going to ask you to share what your experience was and give us the setting. What does it look like at that time of year?
So when I got there, it was still, depending where you were at, sometimes you still see some snow on the ground. So I remember going to the Sacred Grove, and again, my whole life, I've seen these pictures or videos of this, butterflies flying or whatever, spring, green leaves.
It's like a Disney movie.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs out there.
Exactly.
But I get there and there ain't no leaves on no trees. And I remember, taking a tour of the Joe Smith farm and really enjoyed it. My testimony was strengthened, and it crossed my mind, but then I forgot about it. And then when I came home, started doing the research and just wanting to learn more about it. After going there, can visualize it more. And anyways, yeah, it wasn't no green leaves.
The flowers weren't blooming and things like that.
No, but I thought more about it, and and started reading about other people's thoughts, and the paintings are artistic display of what's inside spiritually. It was actually going into something, and as Joseph Smith had the first vision, it was like a new blossom. It was a new beginning, a new a lot of times, just a lot of just great things happening afterwards, like a new beginning. It's like,
it was the birth,
seed and then a flower blooms.
That's right. It was the birth of the restoration.
Exactly, birth. Yeah. So so as I've some of the videos, you got Joe Smith. In reality, we got to remember, he limped his whole life after he had his leg surgery. We forget that, but he had a limp his whole life. So, he's probably limping in the woods as he's going over there, chopping wood. And, ever since then, I've looked up all these images. And there's some really cool images, really blossoming green, but then there's other images of how it really looked,
Right.
But
this one here behind me, y'all probably can't see it very well, but it's more of an accurate description of what you experienced, Andrew.
yeah.
It's not real green and real flush and with flowers and things like that. But that's interesting. I'd never thought about that until you pointed that out to me there. So
Yeah, it was interesting.
And it's no big deal. I mean, it's again, I like the symbolism there, people's interpretation, of the kind of the renewness of life and the restoration, everything going on at that time.
Yeah. So I'm very simple-minded. Sometimes I just go straight to the, I don't think about it. I just like, what's up? Why is it like this? But that is for all those art people and people really into there's a lot of deep meaning and symbolism when it comes to art and paintings. And again, for my simple minded self, I just went straight to where's the leaves at. But again, that's the beauty of art and symbolism. So and scripture passages are so beautiful if you really sink in there and ponderize it.
So what was so go ahead, Kenny.
Oh no, I like to use the word ponderize.
Ponderize, that's right.
Ponderize.
Snuck it in there. I like that.
So after these verses where he had this vision here, and he said that he had the sun, or the light was greater than the light of the sun at noonday. He saw two personages. One of them spake unto him, calling him by name, and said, pointed to the other, "This is my beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Hear him." And so, Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ appear to him. So Joseph goes on and again walks away, just in awe shock, really, of what has happened and what has taken place. He tells his father, right, about what had happened, and his father tells him that it's true, that it's real. Believe it. Do what you're being asked to do. And but it's pretty short lived with the acceptance of his story. He finds opportunities. So I don't know if I don't think he goes seeking for opportunities to share his experience, but as he continues his discussions with these different preachers and trying to find truth in everything, he ends up relating the experience that he has. And those individuals tell him that now that's, visions don't happen these days. Those are long gone. That's of the devil, boy. You need to go on about, on about, playing with your rocks and stuff. So
go cut some trees down.
Go cut some more trees down for me. That's right. Exactly.
I like a verse 20 where he says, all is well, when he's talking to his mama, to his mother.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, typical young man answer, she's asking him, never mind, all is well,
That's right. Yeah.
I mean,
What'd you do at school today? Huh? Nothing.
He actually says, never mind, all is well. I am well enough off, something like that. Anyway, as he's leaning against the fireplace or something, But
it's kind of, I could just imagine his mom kind of rolling her eyes, feeling like, typical response. Yeah. I try to ask my boys what their day is, and they're like, whatever.
So I do want to say this. Joseph Smith and his family were the new kids in town. They weren't born and raised in Palmyra. They were the new people, and on top of that, they were renters, and on top of that, they were just poor. So they didn't come in taking over the town or Mr. Popular. They weren't the popular family.
Right.
Their mom actually, they got maple from maple trees there, and she painted tablecloths to survive, made root beer, and they were barely surviving. Again, they were renters, and it's another testament to me that no matter our background and faults, we're all children of God, and that God loves all. And because you got to think, their family probably thought they were lesser than everybody else, according to a lot of historical records. They just didn't feel like they belonged to some parts of the community because they were new. I mean, have you ever been a new kid in school, new kid at church, a new kid in town, new kid in an area on your mission? wherever, you just kind of, it takes a while to build up your reputation and all. But again, God speaks to all. He answers all prayers, no matter what your background is or where you're living. So
Andrew, on that, in verse 22 and 23, as you reference kind of their standing and everything, and here he's talking about how the persecution had began. He uses these words to describe his situation. He says, I was an obscure boy, only between 14 and 15 years of age, and my circumstances in life, such as to make a boy of no consequence in the world, yet men of high standing would take notice sufficient to excite the public mind against me and create a bitter persecution. And this was common among all the sects, all united to persecute me. And then in verse 23, he says, it caused me serious reflection then, and often has since, how very strange it was that an obscure boy of a little over 14 years of age, and one too who was doomed to the necessity of obtaining a scanty maintenance by his daily labor, should be thought a character of sufficient importance to attract the attention of the great ones of the most popular sects of the day. So, I mean, he recognizes, like you've said, he's really kind of low on the totem pole when it comes to your standing in society. There. So, and he says, man, it was really amazing that, man, I'm just a boy telling this story, and sharing my experience because I'm having conversations with people, and man, just the world attacked him. And he said he couldn't understand that.
Yeah. Old farm boy. Yeah. I mean, imagine the community there in Palmyra is like, man, who's this family? And man, who's this boy? Kind of getting some attention. I wasn't there, but just when you read all these different angles from different people's records and all,
right. It's a further testament to me again that, that Satan was doing everything he can and that he could to stop this from happening.
For sure. And
yep. But he goes on to verse 24. It says, however, it was nevertheless a fact that I had beheld a vision. I have thought since, much like Paul when he made his defense before King Agrippa and related the account of the vision we had when he saw a light and heard a voice. So basically he's saying, he knew he knew what he had seen and he knew what he had experienced. He knew that it was true. And he didn't back down from it though.
That's right.
I mean, he could have easily been just, this little farm boy, everybody getting on him like they were and persecuting him. It would have been so easy to just clam up, just say, wow, maybe I shouldn't talk about that.
That's right.
His life could have went a whole lot smoother.
Yeah. He also said, for I had seen a vision. I knew it. And I knew that God knew it. So,
that's right.
And you got to think this really stays in character with the kind of individual that he is. We know that throughout his life, he was a pretty competitive individual, right? I mean, he wrestled a lot. He would challenge people to stick pulls and wrestling and things like that, and breaking people's legs and stuff. But but even earlier at a young age, Andrew mentioned the surgery on his leg. At age 7, he chose to not take of any brandy, any alcohol to numb the feeling that he would have, and to just only have his father there to hold on to him. Yeah. That was the only anesthesia that he had was holding on to his father. And so he was a strong character for sure. And really had great fortitude in things that he believed in and wanted to do. So he wasn't, just like you said there, Kennedy, he knew it. And he knew that God knew it, and he wasn't going to back away from it.
Yeah, and he was persecuted for the rest of his life. I mean, he's been picked apart still to this day, and with internet and all these historical records coming out to the world now because of internet. I mean, he's picked apart so much, and it's
right.
I hate it for him. I know. It's again. But how great, like Jackson said earlier. There in 1838, he's like, hey, let's go ahead and just set the record straight, what happened. And, anyways.
But, we live in the information age now,
yeah,
which doesn't necessarily mean that we have any more truth. we've got a lot more information.
Yeah.
There's if you can go to the internet and find as much false information as true information.
Yeah.
And just like Joseph Smith, there's so many things. There was a period of time, when I came back to the church, that I was really interested in, finding things out, learning things for myself. And I researched a lot of information about Joseph Smith. I found a lot of records of things that people had supposedly said about him, and things that he supposedly had said or done. But I also was able to find just as much information that contradicted all the things that portrayed him in a negative light.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's stuff that's, like I always say, you find whatever you're looking for. If you're looking for good things, you'll find good things. If you're looking for bad things, you'll find things to back up whatever kind of, negative feelings you have, or, doubts you have.
Yeah. So there was a paradigm for years. If you want to learn about church history and really dive in, you had to go get in the car or book a flight to Salt Lake, go to the historical building, go within hours and really dive in there. But now with the internet,
code.
Yeah. or get that right book at the bookstore, wherever that was, for us, Orlando or Atlanta. And but if you really want to get from the church, you had to go to Salt Lake. But again, the church is very transparent and open now, with the internet world. And again, like Kenny said, there ain't no more truth. It's just more information, right? Is that how you said it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the truth, the church had a narrative that we were all learning from the ensign and Sunday school lessons and all, but now obviously
no, it's good. I think I think you're talking about how the church has become more transparent in recent years, and I feel like it's a really good thing, and it's something that had to be done because of the information age, because there is so much information out there. There's a lot of good information, there's a lot of false information, there's a lot of stuff that might be true or partially true that might not be fit neatly. There's a lot of, life is complicated. Yeah. And so it's I think it's was a wise move on the church leadership to be moved to being completely transparent and about church history and all these events, because there are some things that are true that people haven't. There's things that we don't learn about in Sunday school that are true.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who were, finding bits of information that they're like, well, nobody ever told me about this. And it just shakes their faith to the core. Whereas now the church is like, okay, here's all the information. We'll lay everything out on the table. We'll put all the cards out on the table. There's a lot of it that's beautiful and perfect. And there's some of it that's not as pretty, but it is what it is. And there's a lot of other stuff that's just flat out not true. And so we're going to lay everything out so you can see where, what the truth is, and all this stuff is there. So it's all there. And, the church has never hidden anything. I've heard so many people try to say that, but most of the information that the enemies of the church use is available and has been for years and years available through Deseret Book, or, the church has had this information. But just, there's a lot of things that, like I said before, might not be relevant directly to our salvation. There's a lot of details that you're not going to learn about in Sunday school, but there's a lot of this stuff that is true. And
Yeah, and these resources, again, we've mentioned it before, but in your mobile versions and your tablets and phones, additional resources, it's available. One of the things here, there's a 6-episode podcast series on the First Vision, a Joseph Smith Papers podcast. And it goes into detail about going over these first kind of everything that took place, and they talk about it and discuss and everything. So lots of information out there. So I encourage you to use it.
Yeah, that's where I learn, and all of us learn. To talk about the woods, episode 3 on that Joe Smith Papers talks. Right. There's a guy there that talks about the woods, how more in depth than what we were talking about, the interesting artistic displays of woods and all. But anyways,
this stuff is so recent. It's interesting. Just stuff that's happened within the last 200 years, which on a historical timeline is nothing.
Right.
And
right. Yeah.
like, this is the kind of stuff that, that we read about Old Testament stuff that happened 3,000, 4,000 years ago. We're like, wow, that was so crazy. But this is stuff that happened within the last 2 centuries.
That's right.
It's just as significant in the grand scheme as far as, the work of God here upon the earth.
Absolutely. It's really kind of surreal reading about it because of that point, Kenny. It's so recent. You're like, man, this is, this again, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and in his dealings with man. So for sure.
That's right. And we don't know when the Savior is going to return. We know he will eventually, but I mean, it could be another 1,000 years.
Right.
And if it is, people will be reading about this just like we read about
that's exactly
in the Bible now, like New
right.
Testament stuff.
That's right. Well, we definitely had an Old Testament event here this year in 20, or I guess last year, right? Because
2020 is a year of biblical proportions.
That's right, for sure. Well, all right. There you go. Joseph Smith History 1 through 26. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check us out on our social media. And don't forget to check out that website, saintsinthesouth.com. And until then, and until next time, y'all keep on striving.